There's so many people in this country that believe in taking care of one another. I know it's hard to believe right now, but there are. And together we are going to come together and take care of one another. So seeing this image is going to be hard for a lot of people. It's going to bring up a lot of pain. It's going to bring up a lot of hurt. Please reach out to your loved ones. Please reach out to people who are suffering in silence right now. Please let them know that they are loved. And they are celebrated for who they are.
Like all Canadians, I was extremely shocked and disappointed when I learned of Justin Trudeau's actions this evening. Wearing brown face is an act of open mockery and racism. It was just as racist in 2001 as it is in 2019.
I certainly set high standards for myself as well, and I hurt a lot of people I care about deeply. It was a terrible mistake, and I take full responsibility for it. I apply those high standards to myself. I will always fight against racism, intolerance, and discrimination, and I hurt a lot of people who considered me an ally.
Well, hello everyone, and welcome to Agree or Disagree, the podcast, not hockey edition. This is Kevin Olenek. Of course, you can follow me on Twitter at KEVOLE. Find me and add me as a friend on Facebook, Kevin Olenek. Like Agree or Disagree, the podcast on Facebook. And as well, you can subscribe to all podcasts on iTunes, Google Play, or wherever you get your podcasts. The words, I apologize and I'm sorry, have been part of our language within the last week. This is after Time magazine revealed that our Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, wore blackface. Not once, not twice, but 3 times. It caused a reverb across the nation. Well, for a little bit anyway. This week, new things have come up. Trump's possible or pending impeachment, Brexit, Greta Thunberg. So it would seem, and forgive me if this sounds as cutting as it does, this became a little bit on the back burner. When blackface came out, I decided to take the advice of several people on Twitter and decided to not talk about this, because I'm white, straight, and this doesn't really, on a personal base, affect me that much. Allow the other people that were impacted to voice their views. I tried to listen and read the voices that were. How were they impacted? How were they heard? Were they actually heard? Here's a nutshell of some of the things that I have heard during this conversation. Can Trudeau still win? How is this impacting the polls? Does this matter if this was in 2001? I'm willing to give Trudeau the benefit of the doubt. He apologized. Andrew Scheer didn't. Jason didn't. Kenny didn't. Let's move on. These are some of the things, not all of the things. But in hearing these things, I have been left with some of my own questions that came through my mind. And just forgive me, let me bring these up. Why was it that an incident in a story about race, the first people that many people outlets went to were white people? Why did it take so long to find other media voices? Why was it that the first questions that were asked about this incident were from pollsters or experts as how this will impact the election, on who will win and who will not? In school, and for you, those who don't know, I'm studying at BCIT, we're reading the Canadian Press Style Guide. And one of the things that I'm taking away is about humanity in the news. How was this handled with any humanity or even humility in mind? And in the midst of this week-long conversation about what happened, did we actually really talk about the incident? How can I be better at this? And maybe as I think about this a little bit more, one of my guests is right. And as much as Canada has a perception of being welcoming, accepting, and tolerant, maybe the fact is Canada is as racist as fuck. One of my guests today are not experts in the news. These will not be the people that you're first going to be hearing from, the producers will find and talk about. But there are people that you walk past every day. They live here, they work here, they study here. And I thought it would be important to hear their perspective. One of them is a co-student in the radio arts and entertainment class. She's a first-year student named Ana Santos. Hello, Ana. How are you?
I'm good, Kevin. Thanks for having me on the show.
Thank you. And I hope I'm pronouncing this correctly. Ana has brought a friend named Arafat Abdi.
Yes, it is.
You are a bartender?
Yes, I am.
Right. And I thought for this, it's easy to go political. But let's start from your story. Tell us kind of your perspective. Tell us who you are. And
okay, well, I guess I'll take the reins on this one to go first. So I'm a 21-year-old student. As Kevin said, I am also studying at BCIT. I'll go into my background. My mother is from the Dominican Republic, which is where I was born, and my father is from Liberia. So I'm mixed race, and I grew up here in Canada, so I'm pretty Canadian as well. My background, I guess I'm 21, so I don't have crazy experience in this world, but I've definitely been around, and I've experienced a lot of different things, and so this topic specifically was something that struck a chord in the way that people responded. So I definitely agree, and I'm happy that Kevin created this platform for people like us to voice our opinions. So, that's a little bit about me as far as my background and where I come from. In the home that I grew up in, I grew up in a predominantly white kind of setting. My mother, while she is Dominican, she's on the lighter spectrum, and then the community that I went to school in, I was usually the only black person in class, and that followed on into high school as well. It wasn't until after I kind of had a taste of the real world that I, started learning about different cultures and different perspectives. So, I definitely am excited to share my view on things, but I'll let my friend here introduce himself first.
I'm Arafat. I did not grow up in Canada. I came here in 2010. I came here with my I have an older brother and my younger brother. Came originally from Yemen, but I'm half Ethiopian, half Arab. Came here with my mom. I worked up as a bartender, working in Boston Pizza, and it's for me personally. With colors, for me is I'm a coach, and I feel like there's always something, in racism wise, what I'm saying? It's not just blacks, it's mostly other kind, other perspective, you know what I mean? So, like, have I ever experienced racism? Yes. I'm a coach, and I get those name calls. I personally, what I'm saying, is the best way is just to walk away, what people say. But I'm just happy that I see just more, we're talking about it as, as a subject more, it's like, it's not, is it a problem? Is it not a problem? So yeah.
Well, it's interesting that we're having a perspective of someone here that has grown up in Canada, mm-hmm. and someone that has not grown up in Canada, exactly. but has lived here for 9 years,
exactly.
and has experienced this. One of the themes that we have always talked about is immigration, so it's going to be fascinating to hear exactly. your perspective for that. But I want to start with Ana, because mostly Surrey.
Yeah, definitely Surrey, White Rock area. That's where I didn't move to North Surrey until probably about 2015, 2016, so after high school.
Did you feel different going to school? Was it pointed out to you that there was an obvious difference between you and everybody else?
That's an interesting question. Looking back, I feel like I've always kind of been a conscious younger person, or I don't know, that sounds weird to say, but when I was younger, I feel like I always knew, but it never really was an issue. It wasn't, didn't grow up it wasn't a racist community where it was pointed out. As I grew older, as a girl, there are certain things that you do tend to notice, when the way that you develop, and then I'd always it's sad to say now, but when I was younger, I would make a joke about the reason why I had this skin color was because when I was born, they dropped me in a pile of mud, and that's why I came out with this color. But that was a joke, and everyone would just laugh about it because they thought that was funny. But looking back on it now, that's a terrible, terrible, horrible thing. And, but the household that I grew up in, I wasn't surrounded by family members that were my skin color, or people around me that looked like me. So I had a very skewed kind of perspective on myself as this little girl who has darker skin. And I found that as I did start to get older, it really started to impact me. I felt that I was missing out. I felt that I did always feel different. And, when you're younger and people start dating each other and everybody starts having boyfriends, I always felt like that ugly, awkward black girl that no one was ever really interested in. So I definitely, as I started to go more into high school, that was when I started to crave a change and crave kind of to feel like I fit into a certain community. So,
how did you find that?
Honestly, a huge reason was my location changed. I moved to North Surrey, which is a completely different demographical it's comprised of a lot more immigrants and people of color than White Rock. White Rock is usually your first class, people that live in mansions, and I kind of flew under the radar there. But when I went to North Surrey, it really opened my eyes up to the world, and it was only 30 minutes away from where I used to live. I honestly felt kind of relieved in a way, and I felt, Surrey has its stereotypes for not being, kind of being a little bit of a ghetto or whatever, but I didn't see it as a ghetto. I saw it as a thriving community of multiculturalism, and honestly, I feel like I've learned so much about myself, and I have a whole other appreciation of myself and a whole much more love for myself now that I've experienced that and I've moved into a different location. But no, people, it really makes a huge difference being that awkward girl to now I feel like I've become this very strong, confident woman who is all for speaking on topics like this and wanting to be a voice for people who feel like they're not represented, because we're out here and I feel your pain, to not feel recognized, to not like yourself because you don't see yourself. So that's kind of how I found it.
Okay. And Arafat, how coming into Canada,
right?
What has it been like for you?
To be honest with you, it's been great. Coming from a really rough place in a war, in a just living in a tent. Because I used to just get up in the morning and just my routine was just helping mom out, set up the tent. Coming here, it just away from, you're working on yourself, as you know what I mean. So for me, it's mostly like I'm happy as yes, that you got to go to school and work for yourself, and what I'm saying, and do what you want to do in here. Back home it's different. It's mostly like getting a job. It's not like, oh, let's just get a job, let's live, and that. It's mostly like, oh, what's next step? Oh, okay, hide your kids from this kind of person, or what I'm saying. So just when I grew up with nothing in my hand, and right now I feel like I'm just blessed in where I am, kind of, So yeah, so it helped me a lot, kind of, just living here, just seeing different cultures. It's not like, oh, look at this, oh, I grew up, oh, look at this white person, look what he has. It's mostly like where I grew up in Surrey, where all the ghetto people are. So, it's mostly like we were a community, not most like, oh, don't hang out with this kind of sort of people because they don't fuck with this kind of party. Sorry about my language, those kind of people. So like, I personally just feel with the racism and all that, I feel there's it's mostly this year. It's mostly like, it's affecting. People are just seeing it more eyes open. As like me, for me, if someone says the N word around me, it's different. It's how I would react really, really different. So it's like it's hard to see when people are like, okay, that kind of person, saying the N word, are you okay with it? For me, it's like, that's not okay. So personally, yeah, I don't.
So people are actually asking you if it's okay to say the N word around you.
Around me. So it's, for me, I don't even know what to say about that, because it's not okay. And you have those really close friends that are like, hey, is it okay? For me, it's like, no, it's not okay. Don't say that around me. And, just some people would just slip that, easily to say it to you, but not in a harsh way. And I was like, oh, I'm saying it as like, oh, you're that word kind of thing. You know what I mean? So,
like, they think they're if I'm hearing you right, what I'm hearing you say is they're thinking this, they're using that word in a way that's like, oh, we're friends.
We're friends, exactly. And not mostly like, oh, you're having that word. You know what I mean?
Speaking on that, I've had experiences where I have encountered certain people not of color saying that word, and I've confronted, and I've asked, politely, I'm like, so why do you choose that language? Why do you choose to say that and throw it around? I am completely aware that with a lot of hip-hop culture and what we hear as far as music, it's been integrated into our vocabulary, and I think it's hard to say I agree or disagree, because I grew up in that culture, but it's just people have grown up hearing it and they feel like it's okay, and that's why it is a thing. And this person that I confronted, she got very timid and didn't really know how to react, because she was taken aback that somebody thought to even question her, because in her mind she's like, of course it's okay, I hear it all the time, or my friends say, we throw it around, and that's why I like to kind of push barrier, or push limits, and just make people uncomfortable and ask those questions, because why do you do it? Do you understand where it comes from, and do you understand that it's not okay?
So there's been always this term that's come up, which is called systematic, which has been in our vernacular recently, which is systematic racism. A word that's coming up in my head now is subconscious. Would you agree with that term, that it feels like
it's been bred.
It's been bred within us that we don't even realize the language that we're using 100%. And how it's.
I hear it every single time I walk outside. I go out in public. I hear people just talk, and they don't give a they don't care. Nobody cares anymore, and that's why when people, and this is kind of going to the whole blackface thing, the main topic here is, people justify it by saying, oh, it only happened a certain amount of years ago, and okay, I acknowledge that, and I acknowledge that times have changed, but I see it as a sort of like, it's disrespectful in a way to disregard it, and in my ears what I hear is, oh, boo-hoo, racism existed back then, that was an issue back then. Right. Boo-hoo, you were discriminated against. Move on. We're in a new time now. I don't agree with that. I think that is disrespectful. That's not being sensitive. That's not being understanding. I understand it's hard to, and when people need to acknowledge that you are not of that culture or of that race, I feel like, how do you feel like you can strongly voice an opinion on the subject when not one part of you has ever been directly affected by it? Why would you not take the stance of understanding and a sort of silence in a way, but you're speaking out and being opinionated when it's like, it's confusing to me. Yeah.
Exactly. And it's not just the whites are saying it, just most everybody, and they think it's okay to say it, which is really, really hard. It's like, that's not okay, you know what I mean? So, I have those kind of friends that, like, if they say it, I have those friends that, like, okay, I feel bad for saying it, but it's like, okay, I can just say it because I just heard it from this kind of person. Which is just like, people are just carrying that around. It's like, okay, if this person can say it, this person can say it too. So, and that's what I mean. That's what I feel like, what I mean? So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what to say to that other than like I'm not aware of it, and I'm glad that you brought that up. I mean, that's not something that I would say to anybody, but it's interesting to me that I'm hearing you say that this is just like so casual. But what other things in terms of just casual, maybe another word instead of subconscious, casual racism? We're inventing words as we go here in some ways, but what other ways have you noticed that? Like, especially you have had who works in a bar,
right?
Where people at times when they're drinking, their inhibitions are lost a little bit. Mm-hmm. What have you noticed?
Honestly, where I work in, I have my regulars. I get a lot of regulars, my friends. Just the regulars. Mostly, like this happened to me like a couple of days ago. I was serving a table, but I know she was a little bit drunk, and I'm like, okay, well, we can't have you here, kind of. So I went up to her, I told her, hey, listen, I cannot serve you more alcohol. You just cut for me, right? And then she's just like, okay, I'm fine. I'll just talk to the manager because I feel like you haven't served me right. I'm like, I've been serving you right. I've been doing my best because for me, it's like if I see someone who's, and I'm like, I can't serve you. I'm done. This is my call. It's not the manager's call. It's my call. So, and then when she was walking away, so it's like, okay, that black person, that nigga should not be working here. And I'm like, my manager heard that. She's like, don't worry. She's banned. She's never going to come here, But she still comes in and she think it's fine, So it was like, okay. And then this happened, and this honestly happened to me this last Monday. And I was just bartending. This lady walks in, and she's like, do you have a rolling paper? Because you look like a friend, my friend that smokes weed. I'm like, why do you need to, ask me for that? Well, why do you need to tell me? You keep that to yourself. You don't share that with me, because it's not right, what I mean? So, other words with, it's where I work, honestly, there's no name calling, they're really, really, managers are really good about that, and they know. And I get my regulars, personally. I don't get those people coming in my bar who are like, oh, this nigger, that word, or any word that like, okay, I don't want to go to a bartender because it's a black guy, and I'm just going to go over there, Personally, I do not see that in the restaurants right now where I'm working at.
What about you, Anna?
With racism, I also have been in the service industry for a long time, and to me, I see it in different ways. I feel like society has changed in the way that they are racist. It's just, what I have to say about the topic is that I feel like it's, again, embedded into us that no matter what and no matter how we try to eliminate racism, or I don't think it can be eliminated. I think that it can just be taught in a different light, and it starts in the households. I think that when people are born, we aren't born to hate. We aren't born to dislike. We're conditioned to. So, I definitely feel like that's something that starts in households and how we raise our kids. Because no matter what, we have eyes and we see colors. We're going to see differences. It's just a matter of how we react to them. In the workplace, as a girl, this is a big thing with hair, and it might not be racist, but I don't know. So something happened. I was working in a restaurant, and there was another girl that was working with me. She was also a woman of color. She had a darker skin color than me. She didn't look anything like me. She had long hair. I had short curly hair, if I even had hair at that time. And we didn't look alike. And I was serving a table, and, I was dealing with other things, and I brought them their food, and then the other girl, she had helped them out a little bit as well. And they made a certain comment, and they were talking to her, and they thought she was me. And then they told me, they're like, oh, we thought she was you because you guys look alike, and we don't look anything alike. And things like that, they really, really irritate me. Because I'm like, are you really that ignorant? And just like, I'm like, do you even care, or do you even think about the things that you say? And that's happened to me actually a few times, where people are like, oh, you guys, you look alike, and we don't look like, we're human beings. We're not like the same. We're like aliens that are identical to each other. I feel like sometimes people see a certain, and this is not just black people, this is every single race and culture. I feel like people see one, and then they see everybody together. And that really, it disturbs me, because that is not the case, So, yeah.
Well, Arifat, you talked about at the beginning, too. I want to get into something else in a second, but you did talk about earlier in the beginning of this, you talked about you don't only experience this within your own culture. You've seen it with other cultures. So tell us what you're seeing. Both of you can chime in on that. What are you seeing?
Coaching, right? When I coach, it's different. Personally, where I coach is a place that mostly only brown people are just, their own people.
What do you coach? Sorry to interrupt. What do you coach?
Soccer. I personally
okay.
coach soccer, right?
Okay.
And it's mostly run by brown group people, and that's totally fine. What I have is most cultural. I have different people. I have Mexican. I have everyone in my soccer team, right? So it's when you play sports, anyone can get in your head. It's like anyone can just piss you off with any word, So what I tell my kids, it's mostly like, if anyone says something to you, best way is to walk away, because that's what everyone says. But it gets to that point that, like, you can't just walk away. Because I know this is a sport, but soccer is not a physical sport. It's mostly, okay, like, let's play with foot, mostly. But, it's... With different kinds, it's, I have Mexicans in my team, you get that Mexicans, word, racism, like, for me, it's like, what they come up to me is like, hey, do you have fried chicken, or do you have watermelon, or are you drinking, what do you have, crutch in your hand, just to piss you off before the games, so, things like that, like, what I have in my kids, I tell them to just walk away, best thing to do. But it's hard for them, because they still young, and I coach U17, and they're in that age that if anyone says something to them, they will react. They're in that spot in their life. Do you have anything?
About just different. I mean, I feel like I'm an observer, and I like to just, I've watched games, and I can definitely, we're talking about how it happens in different cultures, right? Yeah, it's just, there's an us and them when it comes to cultures. I 100% find. I live in North America. We are, very multicultural, and it's definitely not as prominent as it is in certain parts of the world. For example, being from the Dominican Republic resides on the island of Hispaniola, which is shared with Haiti. And in that, so Haitians and Dominicans, very, very, very different cultures. Haitians were colonized by the French, so they speak patois, and Dominicans were colonized by the Spanish, so they speak Spanish. Dominicans mostly have lighter tones, but there are dark Dominicans. My mother, she, again, I mentioned before, she has a lighter tone. And it's interesting because Dominicans will not say that they're black. But if you go to the Dominican Republic, these are black people. They have dark skin, but they are so disassociated, and they do not, because the what's tied to being black or darker skinned is just, they don't want to be a part of that. And they're very, very racist towards Haitians. Steering away from black people. I do know that in certain Asian cultures, specifically Chinese, Japanese, the darker skinned, if you were darker, I can't speak fully on this because I am not of that race, but I have heard and by reading that the darker the skin you have, that signified that you worked outside and you worked in the fields and you were a worker. And so you see people walking around with umbrellas because they don't want to, get their skin dark because they don't want to be associated with that. And that it just, that's, I think that trails on to completely all the different cultures, white is right is what the mantra was. And it's not just black people. It's everyone. I wrote actually an article on colorism when I was in high school, exploring the diaspora of discrimination between hues and where it stemmed from. So it's a very deep-rooted thing where it comes from. Yeah.
I'll have to read that at some point. I'll be fascinated just to hear what your perspective was at.
Sure, if I could pull it up and find it.
High school was a long time ago,
yeah.
but still, it's interesting. You're also, you do music, you sing.
I am a singer, yes.
So tell us your perspective on that.
On racism in the music industry, or just me being a singer and going through? To be honest, and this is kind of things flipping around, I feel like as a black person, I feel like there's a certain advantage that I have as a singer. I feel like this is not reverse racism, but it's not. I mean, is it racism or is it just I don't know? But like as a black woman, where I am now in Vancouver, I feel like there's a certain uniqueness. And I've been told if you're trying to go into film and you're black, then you have an advantage because they want more black people to be represented in the media. So, I mean, that's a good thing, I guess. But again, that's still, okay, there's color. We need to, you know what I mean? Like, again, it's going back to that whole thing. As a musician, though, honestly, personally, I can't say that I've experienced a lot of racism. I think it's more been about the talent and ability. So it hasn't been about, oh, what does she look like? It's, can she do what she says she can do? Can she sing or make music? So yeah, I definitely think that there's different like views for different people, but from my own personal perspective, I have not experienced that much, but I definitely know that it is there. Yeah.
So one of the things that I ended up talking about here before we get into the political stuff is we talked about Canada as this tolerant acceptance. We have this reputation. It used to be that Americans would wear a Canadian flag when they would travel on their backpack because they would be treated better because Canadians are more accepting.
I can see that.
Tell us from your view what we're missing here.
What we're missing in this sense?
Because it was you that said Canada's as racist as fuck.
Yes. Does that mean?
That was I remember you. We had a conversation.
Probably. Oh yeah, we did. I probably did. Yeah, we're still racist. Yeah, I can still attest to that. Canada is racist, and what's the difference then between us and the States in that sense, or?
Just in the sense of like, how are you seeing that in the big picture?
I see it as, where you're walking around Surrey and you're black, you are more likely to be pulled over or questioned just because you're black. That's how I see it as. I've been to Toronto, similar situations, I feel like there's a certain fear that black people have of getting caught. Like, you're not even doing anything wrong, but because of the color of your skin, you take more caution to what you do because you don't want to be pointed out. People tell their kids, because you have this skin color, you need to be more careful because you're going to be targeted. And of course, there's been the Black Power movements and all those things. So that's the whole other conversation. But yeah, that's how I see it. As I see it as, regardless of whether or not we are Canadian versus America. Yes, maybe it hasn't been as in your face, but we didn't exactly open doors to anybody back then. We were still kind of cautious. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, yourself.
Honestly, can't go into it because I agree with what she said. 100% agree with it. U.S. is different than here. 100%. You can say there's more effed up there than more here. It's here. It's like you can kind of get away with it. It's like, oh, like, just you being black, just walking around or doing something. Or me living in Surrey, it's me. I've been living in Surrey for a good 9 years now, and just me walking is like, I think every cops knows me. They think they know me. It's like, oh, I think I see you somewhere. It's like, no, like if you go to my history, I probably have nothing bad record in my life, but like, but I agree what what Ana 100% says. I'll go into it most. It's different. It's different. More, I personally think it's different than the U.S. I've never been to the U.S. to be honest, but I just reading about it, seeing the TV about it, seeing everything, just what's going on there. I just feel like here's like okay, but like people are just still getting away with it, but just for a little bit things, not That's yeah.
All right. So we've laid a little bit of a groundwork here to where you're coming from. Now let's dig in a little bit to this issue. From your perspective, it may seem like a really big question at this point, but I think we'll unpack it as we go. Mm-hmm. How did you feel about what you saw? And how have you felt about the conversation since we have seen these 3 photos with Justin Trudeau?
Honestly, I've seen the picture, but haven't really seen the picture, to be honest with you. But honestly, about Justin Trudeau, it's hard. That's a really, really hard one, because I feel like when he was saying he was going to welcome 100 immigrants in here, so it's hard to see that. But I feel like, I don't know, it's hard. It's honestly really hard to me seeing that pic, the all black. I need a question from that too. It's why for that. So
why?
Yeah, just why with the blackface? I just don't get it. Why?
You don't understand why he's doing it.
Yeah, I just don't understand why he's doing it. But you saying?
Is it doing? I think he did. I don't think he's doing it anymore.
He did it.
He did it. Yeah.
You say there's 3?
There are 3 photos.
3 different instances, I believe.
One was in high school. One was and 2 was when he was an adult. And one he was a drama teacher. Mm-hmm. So it was a performance, and one it was at a party, if I'm understanding this correctly.
Okay. To be really honest with you, I feel like it's not a problem to me. To be really honest, it's not like a huge problem, because I feel like it's, if he wants to do that kind of thing, it's drama. It's like, okay, I get that. But when he was a kid, okay, like, you get to that age that, like, okay, you just want to goof around with your face, I guess. But
it's more the context, though, I believe. It's like the fact that you are putting a different color on your face to represent a different race.
Right.
And comically interpret them is, I think it's not right that he did it back then, but right now, like talking about right now in 2019 and what people are focusing on, I think people, like, again, it's the understanding that you shouldn't just dismiss it. he's been he was our prime minister. He is still currently for a little bit now.
Right.
And I think that it does have a lot to do with other political parties trying to put a dark light on him.
Exactly.
But yeah, I'm not about to start calling him this flat-out racist guy, because to this day, he's not going out on the streets with blackface. But I think it's more so a sensitivity to the people that have commented on the situation, because he himself has acknowledged the wrongdoing. But it's more so people saying, who gives a crap? It happened a while ago.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I kind of start to be like, okay, yes, it did, but it's still an issue to this day, and I'm sure in some areas it's still being done, and people should just be a little bit more sensitive to the issue when they say certain things. Yeah.
Were you going to say something, Arafat?
No, I was just...
Oh. How have you felt the media has covered this?
Well...
Isn't he running for
yeah, I'm not, I'm politically... I will just be flat out honest with you. I don't really watch that much. It's
That's
more
fair.
Word of mouth or what I see. This was just an issue that was brought up in class and everything, and that's why I kind of have this opinion on it. But as far as media coverage, I definitely think that there's a certain perspective that's being shown, which is more of a Caucasian white perspective, or people that are talking about it that haven't really experienced or have felt racism in that sense, that are making comments on it. So I feel like if you're going to talk about an issue like that, at least bring people into the media that are of color to talk about it. That's what I have to say. Yeah.
How do you feel about the apology? Are you... It doesn't matter, he's done this, or, I'm not going to forgive him for it, or, and maybe that's a poor word, did you feel the apology was sincere? Where are you at with that?
I think he had no choice but to apologize. I don't know Justin Trudeau personally, but I could only hope to assume that the Prime Minister of our country doesn't actually feel racist, those racist views, or and him apologizing. Yes, the shit gets shown, brought up from your past, and you have to acknowledge it. And yeah, I'm not gonna judge his character currently, because like I said, he's not doing this right now. He's our voice, and essentially he knows what's at stake and what's in his hands. So I would again think to believe that the person that we elected as our prime minister isn't a racist guy.
I hope not.
So
exactly.
That's what I would have to say about that. The apology, again, you can't be the prime minister and not apologize for that. So again, I do feel like he kind of had no choice. You gotta say something, or else you're gonna, So that's what I have to say about that.
Is there anything that I am missing that we need to talk about?
No, I think that we covered backgrounds and where we come from and why we're saying the things we say, and what we feel about what he did. Arafat, do you?
For me, about Justin Trudeau is, I feel like he respects every kind of culture, because I feel like he did. When I saw pictures a couple of days ago, him wearing a Indian clothes, so I feel like the apology, I don't know if it's enough to other people. I was like, okay, he apologized. I don't think he meant to do that kind of thing. But I feel like I agree with what she said. I think he had that, you have to apologize, or I think, because, and we got to think about this. He's running again. So it's it's hard. I don't know. For me, it's personally, I haven't read more about it personally, and what I know about Justin Trudeau is all about respecting cultures. But I was really shocked about the picture, for sure. Really, really shocked.
Yeah, I can understand that. I also was struck by how much the picture has been shown. It just seems like when I'm watching on news channels, it's every 2 seconds it's back to that picture. It's back to that picture, and I'm curious about that. I don't know if I'm making any sense with what I'm saying. It's like the picture's offensive, but we're still just going to show it, even though we know it's offensive.
This emphasis, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
I definitely think that a week and 2 weeks to talk about the same topic and to blow it up more, I think it has to, again, the timing of this photo, people need to, like, look at that, because we're in an election right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The timing is just of course, a photo of Trudeau and blackface has popped up right now. That's what I think that it has to do with that. And again, people need to look at the political context of the situation. Yes, it's, not to degrade what it is, but to also, like, why it's being talked about so prominently. If it was, it's because people are trying to put him in a bad light and be like, don't vote for him because he's racist. But he's not actually racist right now. It's just, we're trying to it's the media. That's media and other parties. I literally watched a commercial on TV, a political campaign commercial. I'm pretty sure it was conservative. And it was so scripted and so Trudeau is this nasty, racist, bad guy. And it's like, come on, like, people need to be realistic and fair and be like, he's not doing it right now. And it's because they're just trying to bash on him so you can vote for the other people. Yeah, that's what I would say.
That's how I honestly feel, like the same thing, because where was this before? Why didn't you pop out when he was running it, before that? So
yeah, exactly.
So it's really hard to be like, okay, he's racism right now, because I think you have to think about how people just trying to win with anything, old pictures or anything these days. So I don't personally feel like he's a racism.
It's a racist.
So it's nothing.
So you feel it's more political than it is actually addressing an actual issue.
Yeah, I think that's why the media are just pushing it. I don't think they will push it if he was running for it. I personally don't. I don't think it can be this really a big deal. How we're actually talking about this right now. I don't think.
Okay. Well, I think we'll leave it here.
Okay.
Unless you want to talk about something else.
No, I hope we gave you some info, some content there.
I think we got some good content.
Yeah.
So, in terms of any social media stuff, Anna, where are you at? I know you're just starting in the program. Do you have a Twitter?
She has an album coming out.
Yeah. You had an album coming out.
She has an album coming out.
Okay.
She's doing well for herself. Right?
Yeah, to find me, I guess Instagram is kind of my main platform. I'm working on a website right now that will kind of have more information as myself as an artist. I am releasing my first ever EP and music video next week on my birthday, October 2nd.
Nice.
Yeah, if everything goes to plan. I'll just leave out my handle. It's ANASANTOSS__. That would be my Instagram handle, and we'll be posting my release information on there. So if you want to know more about me and my music, you can hit me up over there.
Arafat, are you politically active? Or
I have no social media kind of right now. Instagram I have 0 pictures, but I'm putting out there as contact, like coaching 101. So personally, I feel like you can go under me. It's _ Arafat Abdi, or I'm just making a new one. It's just Arafat Abdi. So
okay.
At the beginning of
You're
things.
in the beginning of things.
So
you got to start somewhere.
You got to start somewhere. Yes, it is.
Yeah. You can follow me, KVOLE. You can subscribe to all podcasts and find them on Spreaker.com, KVOLE. Wherever you find your podcasts. I'm there, Facebook, Twitter, etc. I'm really glad we did this, and I hope it was.
Yeah, I hope that I thought this was okay.
No,
I think this is great.
Yeah, cool.
All right.
Yeah, awesome.
All right. I hope you all enjoyed it, and we will talk to you all soon.
Adios, guys.
Bye.